Joining us now to discuss the pace of economic recovery, Vinkesh Gulati, President of the Federation of Automobile Dealers Association of India, Niranjan Hiranandhani, the MD and co-founder of the Hiranandhani Group, and Akshay D Souza, the Chief Marketing Officer at Bizom. Gentlemen, appreciate you joining us here on the program. As we pointed out at the start of the show, there are several indicators that do point towards a recovery. Akshay, let me ask you, if I were to look at what's happening on the FMCG side, on the consumer durable side, on the FMCG picture, at least if one goes by the Kantar Worldwide Panel report, it's clear that unlike what we just heard there from FADA, rural markets continue to outpace urban markets. In fact, more branded products were sold even in rural India. So what are you picking up in terms of the kind of trends you're witnessing at this point in time, and what's the outlook, more importantly, from here on?
Sure. Thanks, Shereen, for having me here. In rural, one of the first things that we are seeing is rural market in pandemic 2 isn't growing as strong as pandemic 1. In pandemic 1, we saw that rural powered the entire growth for the whole year, after the first pandemic. But this time, it is actually the urban tier 2 cities that are powering that growth. Now, more importantly, I think what July indicates is optimism. And this optimism is that of industry having grown higher than pre-pandemic. So we are actually sitting at 3%. Bizom data says that we are 3% higher than pre-pandemic levels in July. And that is an important measure. And that has been heavily driven by having a lot more Kirana outlets that have opened up. So you today have almost more Kiranas opening up, about 12% higher than what it was last month. And that has also powered that growth. And because you are now in July, you are at the second highest level of Kirana outlets in 2021. And keep in mind that you had JFM that already went by, where you had very high levels of Kirana. And that basically brings a lot of optimism into Q2 now. Because with a strong July, you are now going to be building into August and September. And if sector-wise anything to go by, I think you're looking at very strong commodity growth in July. You're looking at extremely good growth for confectioneries and chocolates. And you're looking at a strong growth even in personal care. So I think these three categories are going to show great growth here. And we do see that commodities is now already higher than pre-pandemic levels, the whole staples business there. The other categories are bouncing back and they're bouncing stronger, especially the ones that got affected the most, in the pandemic era. So I think that's the big change that is happening, and I think there's a lot of optimism from a consumption story for India.
Okay, that's good to hear. Optimism there as far as consumption story is concerned, and you're saying that the Bizom data shows that we're 3% higher in July versus pre-pandemic level, so that certainly is heartening news. A double whammy for the entry-level customer because of the rise in commodity prices, the acquisition cost, the procurement cost has gone up, and of course fuel prices have gone up significantly. But Akshay, what does that mean as far as the FMCG market is concerned? Are we starting to see a significant downtrading more than what we saw previously to the last 15 months? How are the price increases being absorbed by the market?
So Shereen, one of the key trends that you see when every time a price increase happens is either you raise the end user price directly or you reduce your pack size. That's typically the nature of how FMCG operates today in India. One of the things that we saw in the last month when with all these price increases and the pandemic on us is almost all categories across FMCG in rural, especially in rural, were downtrading. And this is barring commodities, every other category was downtrading, whether it's home care, personal care, packaged food, even dairy for that matter, even beverages, they're all downtrading. And that is also because consumers there are just being cautious. They're just making sure that in case there's an exigency spend or if they've gone through any medical issue earlier, they're just saving on that extra cash. But that trend is not as evident as much in urban cities. Urban cities, it still looks like business, pack sizes are similar. In fact, in certain categories, we're seeing in packaged food, especially seeing larger pack sizes, simply because people are now having in-home consumption. They're not looking at so much out-of-home consumption because of the restrictions that happened over the last few months. And even today, typical office strength is not at full force. So you're still seeing a lot of at-home consumption happening, and hence pack sizes there are slightly bigger. But yes, edible oils especially, because it's kind of had over a 50% surge, if you look at average it out, is probably the hard hit where I think government has started taking some measures. And that needs to come good in the next few months, because that is really hitting the consumer hard at the moment. And that needs to kind of get down. And for the other products, the market is still absorbing, but edible oils especially need the intervention to kind of drop the prices even further.
Well, fuel on one side, edible oils on the other side. It clearly is pain for consumers, whether they're trying to get a bite to eat or get a bike to ride. Vinkesh Gulati, Niranjan, Hiranandhani, Akshay D Souza, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks very much for joining us to give us a pulse check of what's happening on the ground when it comes to the consumption story. Signs of positive recovery across the board, and the view is that this is likely to be sustainable. Appreciate your time.